Mortal Kombat is a franchise etched in history. It could be considered the most influential fighting game series of all time, and with its multimedia potential in movies, TV shows, comics, and even cartoons, its reach has expanded well beyond the confines of just a game. But of course, those games are what started it all, and with Mortal Kombat remaining popular for over 30 years, each game has been able to maintain relevance. How? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. Hello my fellow oddities, and welcome to a new video where we will identify the most iconic thing about each Mortal Kombat game, including both the mainline entries and the spin-offs. In this video, the two things I'll be taking into account most when deciding what is iconic is the reach it had outside of the hardcore fanbase and its impact on the gaming landscape or even the world. And without further ado, let's start off with the game that began this franchise and is one of the most influential games of all time. Mortal Kombat from 1992. The first Mortal Kombat game is inarguably the most iconic out of all of them, with only one other title being even considerable. Almost everything in this game is the definition of iconic. Every stage, character, moveset, and even the sounds and dialogue created the perfect storm for memorability. You have the poster boys of the series, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, their designs and rivalry being the most consistently popular thing about the series. The other characters are no slouches either, with Raiden and Goro being the standouts there. The pit stage, along with the first ever secret character in a game ever, Reptile, is also stamped in the history books of gaming. And let's not forget all the iconic dialogue either. Finish him, get over here, fatality, and that is where I think we found the most iconic thing about the first Mortal Kombat game. The thing that stirred all the controversy the series would be known for from then on. The fatalities. These gruesome finishers riled up parents and politicians at the time, unintentionally making the game even more popular. And we can leave it at that, just fatalities. But I want to get specific here because a lot of them are very iconic. Kano's heart rip, Scorpion's toasty, the kiss of death, and more. But there is one that stands above the rest. That is Sub-Zero's. The head rip, or as it's more commonly known by fans, the spine rip. The one that truly took the world by storm, and whenever the video games cause violence debate was brought up, this was usually the main one mentioned, even still to this day. So, out of a sea of options, my pick for the most iconic thing from the first Mortal Kombat game is Sub-Zero's head rip fatality. Moving on to the second game in the series, remember when I said there was only one other game that can compete with the first one in terms of iconicness? Well, this one is it. This game improved on just about everything from the first one. Every new and old character, every stage, even having more secrets to discover. This is the game that truly made Mortal Kombat Mortal Kombat. And this one is much harder than the first one. A lot in this game is pretty much on the same level, so picking something that stands out is especially hard with the vibrant and character-defining new designs, the stages such as the Deadpool and the Pit 2, and of course, the returning fatalities, with each character now having two, plus a friendship and a babality, which have become iconic finishers in their own right. And the new character additions such as Baraka, Jax, Kung Lao, and the big bad of the series, Shao Kahn, I mean, what do I pick here? Well, when in doubt, look to cosplay. That's not a real saying, I don't know why I said that, but if you look at the most cosplay Mortal Kombat characters outside of your Scorpions and Sub-Zeros, you have Mileena and Kitana, who weren't the first female characters in the series, but are certainly the most iconic. They are the Scorpion and Sub-Zero of the female characters, palette swap rivals. Never fails for Mortal Kombat. But these two have very legit arguments for being on that Scorpion and Sub-Zero level of popularity, with many believing they are number 3 and number 4. Now, who is number 3 and who is number 4? Well, that's not a war I'm going to start today, because these two ladies have very devoted fan bases for good and bad reasons, and I do not feel like being flamed today, but, you know, I guess that's just another reason that these two are the most iconic thing from Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 3. This is the game where Mortal Kombat took a bit of a Western turn. No, not Not that type of Western. This game had a lot more American or mainstream influence compared to the previous two, and this can be seen in the stages with the more city-inspired areas and the characters with a lot more pop culture references. A big thing about this game is that they really, for whatever reason, wanted to stray away from what was so popular about the previous two, with the most notable thing being the lack of palette swap ninjas. So no Melina, no Reptile, no Katana, and most importantly, no Scorpion. There was Sub-Zero though, but he looked like this. They had a lot of faith in their new characters, and although to us hardcores, Cabal, Sindel, Nightwolf, and all of them are very iconic, to the outside world, not so much, which of course led to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 being released with all of the ninjas back in. There was only really two characters that were on that same level of popularity as the ones from MK1 and 2, and that's the Cyber Ninjas, mainly Cyrax and Sector. Sorry, Smoke. But like I said earlier, palette swap rivals never fail from Mortal Kombat. Even though, at this point, Cyrax and Sector were not rivals, but do you think anyone other than Mortal Kombat fans really know that? And though those two characters are a very close second, I think the most iconic thing about Mortal Kombat 3 is not anything to do with the characters, the stages, or anything aesthetic like that, but the gameplay and a lot of the mechanics that came along with this new entry. It made Mortal Kombat less about the timing and countering with singular moves and more about that fast-paced action that it's known for today, especially with games like Mortal Kombat X that took a lot of inspiration for this one when it came to its gameplay mechanics. It made Mortal Kombat all about the quick decision-making and, yes, button mashing. The run button made its first appearance in this game, which although isn't very common, is always appreciated when it's there, and I think this game just really opened the floodgates for gameplay to become a centerpiece for Mortal Kombat and allowed for the competitive scene that we have today. Mortal Kombat Mythology's Sub-Zero. With this being a spin-off, not many people outside of the fanbase have heard of it. In fact, most of the fan base hasn't even played the game. I think for this one, there's really only two options. Firstly, being the difficulty of the game. It was pretty well known for being hellishly hard and unforgiving with just the wackest of controls. And secondly, and the one I'm going to go with, the live action cutscenes. Specifically, one of the first ones where Sub-Zero meets Quan Chi, and Quan Chi calls him the N-word.
Greetings! I see the ninja has been successful.
Let's get something straight. I am not a ninja. I am Lin Kuei.
Mortal Kombat 4 was the game that brought the series into the third dimension, and it kinda sucked, along with a lot of other bad things coming out from the series at the time, which caused a 5-year gap between this and the next mainline entry. Now there's not a lot to choose from here, and I could just say, well, it's 3D now, and that's the main selling point, and probably the most iconic thing about the game, but that feels kinda cheap, and I wanna go with something more specific, which is a bit hard to do because this game is pretty much just what we had before, but it's 3D now. Something funny I could go with is the gibberish how the characters spout in the middle of gameplay. They even included funny little phrases in there as well.
Go down my leg!
And it did resurface as a meme in the community a while back, so it definitely does have some staying power. But if we're gonna talk about memes of Mortal Kombat 4, I mean, come on, we have to go with the ultimate one, the one that truly transcended just the Mortal Kombat community, and that is Jarrek's ending.
Wait, this is brutality. You can't do it. Wrong, Jarrek. This is not a brutality. This is a fatality.
This was just legendary, and I don't really have any other options, so yeah, this is the one I'm going with. Special Forces. Yeah, this was a bit of a dud period for MK. Anyways, I could just say the most iconic thing about Special Forces is the fact that it's one of the worst games of all time, which it's kind of funny that Mortal Kombat has both one of the worst games and one of the worst movies of all time, but yeah, I'm not going to do that. Tremor is an option here, with this being his first and for a long time only appearance in the series, but I'm going to go with the opening cinematic of the game, which calling it a cinematic might be an insult to actually good cutscenes. Deadly Alliance, the beginning of the real 3D era, and this one's a bit underrated in terms of impact. I mean, it reintroduced Test Your Might for the first time since the original game, while also introducing its own Test Your Sight, plus the freaking Crypt made its first appearance in this game, which is a pretty well-known thing now associated with Mortal Kombat. And although not all the new characters are a hit, Kenshi and Boraicho turned out to be pretty popular. Also, the titular Deadly Alliance was a matchup for the ages, the two sorcerers of the series, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, who also returned as the main villains of Mortal Kombat 1. One of them even has the best fatality in all of Mortal Kombat history. You know which one. But it's not always about who you are, sometimes it's about what you did. And so the most iconic thing about Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance is Liu Kang's death. I mean, Liu Kang had been the untouchable protagonist since the first game. It seemed like nothing would stop him from overcoming every obstacle put in front of him. And just like that, in the opening cutscene, no hero's death, no self-sacrifice, just basically gets jumped. And of course, Liu Kang's blood was on the hands of the first ever main boss of the series, Shang Tsung. Oh yeah, and Quan Chi was there too. I think this one is a no-brainer. Liu Kang's death marked a major shift in the franchise to a more darker tone, and that is exemplified in Deception. This one's really hard for me. Not because it's anything short of amazing, but because it doesn't really do too much completely new. It just takes what's worked in the previous games and just makes it even better. This is true for the story, characters, mechanics, basically everything. The only completely new additions to the series are a few new characters, which besides for Havoc don't really stand out, Conquest Mode, which is amazing, but not really something I'd call iconic, and the puzzle and chess combat, which are very, very fun, and I hope they come back in some form in a future game or as their own game, but it's not really that iconic. A great contender for this may be the opening cutscene. The sight of Raiden, Quan Chi, and Shang Tsung teaming up to battle Onaga, Raiden kamikazeing and Onaga just shrugging it off, amulet in hand, it's certainly up there, but Deception introduced a new character design that has appeared in every single game since then. Besides for Mortal Kombat vs. DC, but I don't think anyone really cares about that one. And that is Dark Raiden. And with this design being one of his staples now and his main alternate look, and even sometimes just his main look in general with this game, Mortal Kombat Armageddon and Mortal Kombat 11, I think this just has to be it. Shaolin Monks. This one is always a special one, and I think the one I have to go with here is that opening cutscene. This is just probably the most Mortal Kombat cutscene we've ever seen in anything, just ever. And while the sight of the actual gameplay with the two Shaolin monks teaming up in a co-op beat-em-up game, which had never been done before in Mortal Kombat, is certainly an iconic one, I just don't think it can compete with everything that happens. Shang Tsung watching over the fighters as they all battle each other brutally. Sub-Zero using a dude's spine to whack Scorpion. Reptile chewing Johnny's head. Goro appearing and the whole place falling apart. It's so nostalgic, I can't pick anything else. Armageddon, the game that had every character in the series up to that point, and there's a few good ones here. You got Motor Combat, which is actually way more polished than I thought it would be when I played it for the first time, and I hope that becomes a full game at some point. There's also Creative Fighter, which has gotten me tens of thousands of views, so that's clearly something that people are interested in and stand out as something that they remember from the game. But come on, we all know what the most iconic thing about Mortal Kombat Armageddon is. Just like Shaolin Monks, it's that opening cutscene where all the fighters battle, killing each other brutally before rushing to get to the top of the Pyramid of Argus. People have made full videos breaking down this cutscene, and whenever you think of Armageddon, you think of this. The forces of light versus the forces of darkness, and Blaze roaring from the top of that pyramid. So nostalgic. Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. With this one being a crossover, you'd think the most iconic stuff about it would be the interactions between the Mortal Kombat and DC characters, but there's not really any of that that's super well known or has really stamped on the series as a whole. I mean, there is Scorpion sleeping in the Batmobile. That one's good. I'll give it that. Some of the laughably tame fatalities could be it, specifically Kano's, which has been made fun of to death. But I think here I'm gonna go with a specific character, and although this is a Mortal Kombat centric video, it's gonna have to be a DC one, and that is the Joker, who is easily the best character in the entire game. Firstly, he has the best fatality with the fake out gunshot, which was widely accepted at the time for being just the best fatality in the game, and just would have been a little bit better with all the gory details, but even then, some believe that the gory details would have made it worse, not better, and that the way it's shot and the way the camera cuts away makes it even better. Also, Richard Epcar is super underrated as a voice for the Joker, and he's not Mark Hamill or anything, but I think he's probably my second favorite. And lastly, I mean, it's the Joker. The hardest thing to do is to not make him iconic. Even the most terrible renditions of him. Jared Leto. Joaquin Phoenix. Mortal Kombat 2011, a game that brought the series a breath of fresh air and a return to form, and that form was 2D combat. This game is arguably number 3 when it comes to the most iconic Mortal Kombat games, and is probably the height of its popularity since the 90s. And most of the reason for that is because it took a lot from the 90s games, mostly banking on nostalgia and having all of the Mortal Kombat 1 through 3 characters now graphically updated in the game. But you can't have such a successful entry in a series without doing something new, and although the guest characters in Kratos and Freddy Krueger could definitely be in contention, as well as the only newcomer to the game, Scarlet, and who also could forget the cheapness of Shao Kahn, who yes, was cheap in the original games, but in this one it was just on a whole new level. But I'm not going with any of those. For me, Mortal Kombat 9's most iconic thing is the story mode. This revolutionized fighting game narratives, giving them real structure and a way to mix gameplay and visual storytelling in cutscenes, plus a somewhat effective way of getting players familiar with most of the characters. This would be super influential, with many fighting games taking inspiration after, but NRS always being recognized as the originators. And seriously, Mortal Kombat has always just been the reinventors of fighting games, always bringing something fresh and new. Mortal Kombat X. This game has a decent amount going for it, with its hype days being freaking legendary, and really, like Mortal Kombat 3 before, having faith in its new characters, which somewhat worked out. I mean, you have Devora, Kotal Khan, and Aaron Black, who have become kind of household names, at least within the fan base. But other than that, the game played it pretty safe overall, not really going all out on new game modes or new mechanics or anything like that. So in terms of what stands out, there's not really much to choose from, at least on initial release. Post-launch, and I know hardcore fans aren't going to like me for this, but I think what really kept this game going was the guest characters. I mean, just look at Combat Pack 1 and 2. Do you really think people outside of the fan base were that excited for Tanya, Tremor, and Baraicho? The only real exception was Triborg, who was admittedly pretty hype, but other than that, I only remember people talking about Jason and Predator and Alien and sometimes even Leatherface. Still, even now when I talk to non-Mortal Kombat fans, they're always like, oh hey, that's the game with Jason in it, or hey, that's the game with all the horror characters and stuff. Mortal Kombat X really made guest characters a large part of Mortal Kombat, for better or for worse. 11, a bit of a divisive one here. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind when thinking of what is the most iconic about Mortal Kombat 11 is the Game Awards trailer, and everything about this just feels so iconic. The way Ed got on stage, getting our hopes up and then bringing them back down, and then the screen shattering and our hopes going back up again and the logo appearing, and of course the trailer itself. I mean, I can remember what I was doing in this exact moment when this reveal happened, and it was jumping up and down like I won the lottery. But that's just a trailer, and although cool and nostalgic, did it really leave a lasting impact outside of the fan base or anything? Not really. You could go with something boring like Chronica or the Hourglass or I must consult the Elder Gods or something like that, which I guess iconic a little bit, but I feel like there's something in Mortal Kombat 11 that just stands out and really has affected the outside world other than just the fan base. And that's where I land on the competitive scene. Now, at first thought, you guys might think, does that really fit? I mean, every game has a competitive scene, but Mortal Kombat 11's was just different, okay? I mean, just think of all the funny, weird, and just notable things that happen during Mortal Kombat tournaments, and compare that to Mortal Kombat 9, X, and 1, and you'll notice just how dry it all was. I mean, you had people who didn't even play in or watch the competitive scene making references to stuff like, why did NRS do this? Or the Shiva Stomp, or the metas and tier lists. I pretty much remember how every character was perceived gameplay-wise up until its final update, with Garrus being like the S-tier character when the game first released, and then Jackie and Cetrion taking over and being super annoying, and Jade's down 2 being like unreactable, and the Combat Pack 2 characters coming out and being like all complete duds when it came to gameplay. And then you compare that to Mortal Kombat 1. Yeah, nothing. I don't even know who the best and worst characters are. So, yeah. Oh, and speaking of which, Mortal Kombat 1. Now, this game obviously released not too long ago, but already I'm feeling a bit stumped. This game didn't really introduce any new mechanics or content or anything like that. It kind of just built on or even just simplified stuff that has come before. One thing that may be it is Fire God Liu Kang. It was just such a natural evolution of the character that no one really even noticed how different it was to what we had before. Like, we had Raiden, we had him as the god of Earthrealm and his stoicness and his big booming voice and stuff like that. Liu Kang is completely different in this game to how Raiden was, but somehow we just didn't really notice. It's just like, yep, that's Liu Kang. He's the god and protector of Earthrealm and all that, and we just like kind of went with it. And I think that's pretty cool. And also, he's become the face of Mortal Kombat 1 and also the face of many memes, including Dr. Han from The Good Doctor.
I am a surgeon! I am a surgeon!
Honestly, and this might sound a bit stupid, but I think the name Mortal Kombat 1 is what I'm gonna go with here, because it just got people talking. It was like, whoa, that's not what we expected. We expected Mortal Kombat 12 or Mortal Kombat subtitle or something like that. But no, we got a game that very clearly made it obvious that this was going to be a, not return to form, but sort of a reboot of the series and just a way to go back to the beginning and start over. I remember it drawing a lot of eyes to this game when it was first revealed, and it really achieved its goal in making people go, wow, this is something fresh and new. So I think the most iconic thing about the most recent Mortal Kombat game, Mortal Kombat 1, is the name Mortal Kombat 1. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of my picks, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for future content. Check out the links in the description to my merch store, Twitter, and Instagram in the description below. And while you're down there, make sure to give this video a like to show your support. And with that being said, that's it for this video, my fellow oddities. I'll see you next time.